Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Depot Dive. I'm Ross McCorkle, and above me here on the screen is Joe Clark, my co host, and we're going to be diving into three of the biggest Steelers related topics of the week. We're going to kick the show off with a chat on Aaron Rodgers, everybody's favorite or least favorite topic. Then we're going to talk about some of these Steelers free agent additions that they've made since our last episode, of which there have been a handful. And then we'll wrap things up with an interesting report from Jeremy Fowler about the Steelers and Justin Fields and maybe how close they were to trying to get that deal done. Before we dive in, Joe, how's your week been?
Good, good. I mean, it would be better if Aaron Rodgers could just make a decision and we could stop talking about it, but here we are.
Yes, we are being held hostage. What your Xavier made the tournament? You were
They
you were
did,
thrilled
they
about
did.
that.
We got a first four game against Texas tomorrow. A little bit of a chance of revenge. They beat. I was actually there in Kansas City when they beat them in the Sweet 16 back in 2023, and so now a little measure of revenge. And with a win, they get Illinois. So I think it's a favorable matchup to the round of 32. So very excited for the week ahead, and just college basketball all day, Thursday through Sunday.
Who's the behemoth you guys run into in the round of 32?
It would be Kentucky if they can beat Troy. So Kentucky, they've been hot and cold this year, but they got some dudes this year. Mark Pope's, done a lot better job this year than I think a lot of people thought. So that'll be an interesting matchup, and it'll be fun. A little, regional Cincinnati, Lexington are like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So close quarters. It'll be fun if they can actually get there.
I have absolutely no college basketball knowledge out of my wheelhouse, but I do fill out a bracket. Anyone who knows what they're looking at would probably laugh at my bracket, so I won't get into who I picked there. I think I had Houston going all the way. I don't know if that's a popular pick or not, but
That's a solid choice.
anyhow, we're going to dive into our Steelers stuff, basketball aside. Aaron Rodgers has the Steelers essentially hostage at this point, and as a result, pretty much all of our mornings here at Steelers Depot are spent with various talking heads talking about basically how embarrassing this situation is for the Steelers. With every passing day, it seems to be more and more negative storylines surrounding this. At first, it was kind of okay, is this a positive thing? Can the Steelers make something happen with Rodgers? Now everybody's pretty much past that and just fed up and annoyed with the situation. I think I could probably be included in that mix there. I just want to give a quick, I guess, lay of the land of here's where we're at with Aaron Rodgers. Here's everything that we know based on whatever limited reporting has been given. And some people will say, hey, I don't even know if this limited reporting is trustworthy because Rodgers has truly not really said much of anything. The Vikings have truly not said much of anything. But here is the kind of high level overview of what's going on. Aaron Rodgers has offers on the table reportedly from the Steelers and the Giants. He is essentially making those two teams wait because he is, it seems like, trying to pitch the Vikings on signing him. The Vikings have not expressed actual interest in him, although they are, I guess, open to potentially maybe having interest. It kind of baffles my mind that we're sitting here a week over the start of free agency, and the Vikings didn't have some kind of formulation of a plan of, okay, what happens if Sam Darnold does sign elsewhere? Who are our options? You'd think they'd have this stuff thought through. Jeremy Fowler said that, I believe, the Vikings, it's unlikely, but, or what? How did he phrase it? He said it's possible, but probably unlikely was the exact quote that he's used a couple of times from a source within the Vikings franchise, he said. And so, is it a thing where some random high-ranking front office guy is pounding the table saying, hey, I think we can win a Super Bowl if we just bring in Aaron Rodgers now? I don't know. All of that stuff, speculation. But it would appear that the Vikings are kind of the main reason why we're being held hostage by Aaron Rodgers at this point. Joe, is this thing going to last all the way to the draft? After the draft? I mean, there's some insiders talking about this thing going until July, and that's just terrifying to me.
Yeah, it was on the Rich Eisen show, and Tom Pelissero said, yeah, well, it became clear that when Brett Favre was going through his saga when he was going to sign with the Vikings after he left the Jets, became clear he was going to sign with them, but it didn't happen until I think he said like August 18th.
Yeah, that I mean,
And I on that long. I gotta think the Steelers would be wise enough to cut their losses and make a decision. If Russell Wilson's still out there, which the longer this drags on, the less likely that will be, or just decide to go with Mason Rudolph because they're not, you're not doing yourself any favors by letting this drag on. It's kind of holding up a little bit of what you can do with roster building because you have to figure out if you're going to have Aaron Rodgers in there. I mean, they have the cap space for him. That's not a concern at all. But still, you need to figure out who your quarterback's going to be before you kind of build out the rest of your roster. I mean, they've added some pieces around the periphery the last few days, but nothing crazy. And then you kind of owe it to if this, it goes into July, you own a training camp, are you going to all of a sudden bring in Rodgers and have him come into a new offense and supplant Mason Rudolph, who at least has some familiarity with the organization, even if he hasn't worked with Arthur Smith before. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, even if you're waiting until the draft, that feels like a long time to wait to not really know who your QB1 is going to be. Do I think they would wait until the draft? Yes, but once we start getting into May and June, I gotta think they would pull away at that point. But I mean, they seem committed. They're on. I mean, I was gonna say they've been in it this long. It's only been a week. It feels like a whole lot longer than a week. But uh, it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens the longer the drags on because. I mean, it seems like you saw Cam Hayward's comments this morning about either you want to be a Steeler or you don't. It seems like the veterans are kind of getting fed up waiting on this quarterback decision. Steelers quarterback plan since Ben Roethlisberger just hasn't been very good. So I got to think that at some point they'd wise up and realize if the locker room's really getting a little testy, the tensions there. If they continue to wait on Rodgers, that they'd pull out. But I don't know. They seem committed right now. So. It's going to be really interesting to see, but I just hope it doesn't drag on, like you said, until potentially July or even until the draft.
I can't even imagine the comment sections on our articles if this lasts until July. That'll be a sight to behold. It already is starting to get a little testy in there, and I understand fully why that would be the case. Yeah, the veterans being fed up is an interesting thing to me. I mean, Hayward's never really. I mean, he's been around long enough to have. He's totally justified in his opinion to have an opinion like that. But he's not usually the type to kind of speak up about stuff that may or may not be bugging him within the organization. So when somebody like Cam starts to say this and you see signs of frustration there, that does worry me a little bit. I mean, Willie Colon, I think, just said there's like some disheartening things that he heard about the Steelers locker room and how it's gone downhill over the years. I mean, might I remind everybody, TJ Watt is essentially he's entering the last year of his deal and supposed to, hopefully be extended at some point this offseason. Could this whole quarterback situation and just total lack of direction that the Steelers have at the moment, could that make him rethink things? Could it be like, oh my goodness, like I thought they had a plan, it doesn't seem like they have a plan? I don't know, that's just me speculating. But if I'm TJ Watt, I'm sitting there just like, oh man, just face palm, not pleased with the situation in the least. So a little bit of a concern there. Joe, how early is too early? Or what I guess the better question is, what round is appropriate to draft a quarterback? Like, would you be mad, I guess, first, third, fourth? Like, where would you stop being, like, upset if they did draft a quarterback? Or would you be okay with the first round?
I really would prefer they don't take a first round quarterback because if they do take a first round quarterback, it would have Kenny Pickett written all over it again to me. I just don't think there's anybody that's going to be available at 21 that is like a surefire long term starter. Given where they're at right now, I think you kind of have to consider taking a guy in the third. I wouldn't be upset if they took a guy in the third. I mean, I wouldn't love it. I would. I mean, they have a lot of other needs to address. And I mean, but quarterback's the most important position on the field. They have no long-term plans seemingly right now. So at that point, you really have to look at who's going to be around in the third round and see if there's somebody that you like. I know the two names that have been floated by a lot of local media are Jackson Dart and Will Howard. Jackson Dart's gotten a lot of first-round buzz. Daniel Jeremiah had him mocked to the Steelers in the first round. The Steelers are going to the Ole Miss Pro Day, although Brian Baldinger did say that was more for Walter Nolan, but they'll get a good look at Jackson Dart there. So I'm a little concerned that we're going to end up with Jackson Dart at number 21 and it's going to be Kenny Pickett 2.0. But but for me, I would be okay with a third round quarterback just because you kind of have to take a shot on somebody at this point. I mean, it's just their quarterback situation's a mess, and I think you have to try to rectify it, even if you're taking a guy maybe a little bit earlier than he should go. But quarterbacks always usually end up going a little bit earlier than they should go, for better or worse. So I would be okay with a third round pick being spent on a quarterback.
Yeah, I think I just saw. I think it was on Pat McAfee, like just before we hopped on. Rams general manager Les Snead was talking about kind of just a high level overview of this draft class and what he sees in it, and he said this might be a draft class where, I mean, he said that there might be the fewest quarterbacks in a long time in the first round. Of course, 2022 only had one in the first round. So what does that mean? Like, does he not see a single first round quarterback? Because if that's the case, then I mean that would obviously change a lot. I mean, I fully anticipate Cam Ward going, at least in the top 3-5 picks, if not number one overall. You got the Titans, who didn't really show interest in quarterbacks during free agency. Obviously have a need. You're not going to run with Mr. Mayo, Will Levis there. So all signs point to them drafting a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, you see the mocks with people mocking Shedeur Sanders to the Steelers. Would they be tempted in that situation? I don't know. I wouldn't be super thrilled about that. I think, defensive line in the first round's kind of been where my head's at. Although, Jerry Dulac just said running back could go high, or, maybe very high, kind of hinting that the first round could be a possibility for running back. I wouldn't be thrilled with that either. I think I'd probably prefer, I guess it depends who's there, but I'd probably prefer them taking a swing at a quarterback over a first round running back, just because I don't think the value's really there. But anyway, it is a bleak situation for the Steelers quarterback room right now. How comfortable are you just going forward with Mason Rudolph if worse comes to worse? And who would be your preferred kind of backup to him? Assuming they'd have to sign a veteran. Maybe that's Jameis. Maybe that's Flacco. Who would you want in there? And do you think Rudolph would be okay as a starter?
I mean, I think Rudolph probably gives you 8 or 9 wins. I mean, he was good with the Steelers 2 years ago when he had a start. He was, the best quarterback that played for them that year, which isn't saying much, but he was solid. I mean, I think you kind of have a high floor, low ceiling, which has kind of been the case for the Steelers or quarterback the last few years, the way things have played out. Um, so I mean, yeah, you're fine with it. Like, I think you're kind of admitting that you screwed up the quarterback plan, and if you're starting Mason Rudolph this year, and as terms of a backup, assuming they're going to draft a rookie because they probably are going to draft somebody, I'd take Flacco. I mean, he's less turnover prone. As a backup, you don't really as concerned about his complete lack of mobility, and I think he could be a better mentor than Winston. I just think Winston, he's so turnover prone. He's so boomer bust that the highs are going to be great, but the lows are going to be, for a Steelers team that relies on winning the turnover battle, the lows are going to be debilitating them if he has to play. So I can't really see them having any real interest in Winston. I think Flacco, just as a veteran mentor, a guy who's played, some okay football the last few years. He was decent with Cleveland 2 years ago. Wasn't as good with the Colts last year, but he ripped up the Steelers defense in week 4. So I think Flacco is probably the guy there that I'm a little more comfortable with. I mean, I'd like a Tyler Huntley even as an option. He gives you a little bit of mobility there too if you need it. He's played all right. He was okay with Miami last year. He was decent with Baltimore when he got a chance. And then Drew Lock's out there. I'm not, super thrilled about Drew Lock, but I'd probably put Huntley number 1 and Flacco number 2 as my top 2 options if they really want, a veteran backup. But I do like Flacco as a potential veteran mentor, which I think even Rudolph can fill that role a little bit as well. He's been in the league long enough at this point. He came into the league, under Ben Roethlisberger, didn't really seem too keen on mentoring him. So I think if he's in that role as a QB1 and they bring in a rookie, he's going to kind of take the opposite approach and maybe hopefully take that guy under his wing. So, but yeah, it's not an ideal situation regardless, but I think I'm okay with it, just knowing that you're not going to have super high expectations.
Yeah, and if you look at time to throw, a metric of how long it takes from snap until the ball leaves their hands. Joe Flacco is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, eighth eighth fastest in the league, which is actually tied with Aaron Rodgers at 2.69 seconds. Just by default, he would make the Steelers' offensive line look a little better, getting the ball out, almost a half second faster than somebody like Fields, and still quite a bit faster than somebody like Wilson, although Wilson was a little quicker last year than he typically had been throughout his career. So, I could see Flacco. He gets the ball out quick. He's seen everything the game, has ever thrown at him. And, the Steelers, like you said, got kind of diced up by him last year. So I could see them having some interest there. That would just be the full, I don't know. This year is just a parody if Joe Flacco ends up in the black and gold. I know that there's quite a few fans who still have a little bit of disdain for him from all those years with the Ravens. But anyhow, we'll move on to the next topic. This one, the Steelers free agent additions. I struggle to remember this time last week exactly where we were. I believe we had Slay was kind of like a is he or is he not going to join the Steelers? Slay now is with the Steelers. Obviously, we already had Metcalf. Was Eccles maybe already?
I think Eccles was in. I think Eccles was either Monday night or Tuesday morning, maybe.
So we would have had Eccles. So a lot of the other guys should be new. That would include defensive lineman Daniel Equale, Juan Thornhill, the safety. Steelers brought back Isaiah Loudermilk. They brought back Scotty Miller. They brought back Ben Skoranek. They did finalize Slay, so Slay is, in fact, on the Steelers. Is there any that I'm missing?
Yeah, we had Harrison last week.
Yeah. I think we had already talked about Harrison potentially.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I think that's it off the top. I mean, it's been a very long week of quarterback talk. That some of it, but yeah, I think we've covered everybody besides those two up to this point.
Okay, so Equale and Loudermilk is an interesting situation to bring back into the defensive line room. The Steelers, I think last year, kept 8 defensive linemen on their initial 53. Right now, I believe they have 10 or 11. Let's see. They have Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Daniel Equale, Montravius Adams, Dean Lowry, DeMarvin Leal, Isaiah Loudermilk, Logan Lee, Jacob Slade, Dominique Davis. So that's 10, I think. And then presumably they draft one in the first round. And I mean, they brought in Yahya Black. That's kind of like a 6th, 7th round guy. Could they double dip? Then you're talking about 12 guys to fit into 8 chairs. So yeah, kind of interesting in my opinion to bring Loudermilk back. I don't know if I was fully expecting that, although he did play like 150, 160, somewhere in that range, special team snaps last year, and so that helps. He did get a helmet most days where it was kind of between him or Dean Lowry. He was the one getting the helmet. Now, that probably has something to do with Lowry missing a lot of the team building process. So does Lowry, now get that helmet this year? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But yeah, Loudermilk, I guess, has a shot at making the 53, but I don't think it's a lock by any means. Certainly Jacob Slade, Dominique Davis, Logan Lee, even last year's draft pick, are going to have a battle for some of those slots, especially if the Steelers end up bringing in 2 guys. That's probably it, you would think, for the veteran defensive lineman. I mean, do you see them bringing in anybody else at this point?
Not at this point. I mean, as we kind of talked about even last week, the market went fast and furious. The Steelers didn't do anything to address the position, and that until they brought in Equale on Sunday night. I mean, there's not really a ton of intriguing options left. Bringing back Loudermilk to me, in addition, kind of solidifies the fact that they're content. They added, they're two okay depth pieces, and then can go attack the draft at a deep defensive line class.
Yes. As for the secondary, they have now brought in Eccles, Slay, and Thornhill. So that is much needed. I don't know if I think some people have kind of leaned towards, okay, well, bringing in Slay kind of means they have confidence in, or they have some degree of confidence, rather, in Corey Trice Jr., and maybe, Slay's just kind of the perfect bridge to give Trice one more year to kind of prove himself. Do you think I mean, would you be surprised if corner ends up being? They showed a lot of interest in top corners at the combine. If it ends up being their first or their third or their fourth round pick, would that be a surprise to you at this point, given all of the additions in the room?
I mean, I could see them. I could see them in the middle rounds, maybe looking to address slot because Eckler. I mean, Eckler has some slot experience, but the vast majority of his experience with the Jets has been playing outside. So I kind of think you kind of have your outside cornerback set. Your top four with Porter, Slay, Trice, and Eccles now. And so I mean, I could see them adding and looking to maybe nab a slot or even in the first. I would be really shocked if it was in the first round, but Jahdae Barron's kind of a do-it-all guy. You can play pretty much anywhere in the defensive backfield. So if it was going to be their first round pick, that's what I could see it being. But I mean, it would shock me given their needs at this point. But third, fourth, or in the later rounds, taking a chance on a slot to kind of give Beanie Bishop some competition, it wouldn't completely shock me. But I do think that it's been pushed down their list of needs at this point, given what they've done in free agency.
Kenneth Gainwell's the guy that we forgot in this
Oh,
list. That would have happened on
I think it was
Tuesday night last
Tuesday
week.
night. Yep.
So that's another guy here. Super Bowl champion with the Eagles. He played a pretty. It wasn't a huge role, but he was kind of a Jalen Warren like back. So now the Steelers kind of have two of those guys who can play on passing downs, guys who can pass block, guys who can definitely receive. He's got a fair amount of speed to him. I don't know if I'd call him a home run hitter, somebody that's going to turn a small crease into a touchdown, but he does have speed. This is the guy that they would put behind Jalen Hurts in the tush push to do the pushing. So that's partially because of his low center of gravity. I think he's kind of a Jalen Warren, like 5'8", 5'9" kind of individual. And he apparently has tremendous lower body strength. Saquon Barkley said he could out squat him on this certain type of squat. So yeah, this is a guy who, it certainly is intriguing to me. I think he beat up the Steelers pretty good last year. That's kind of a theme with some of the Steelers additions over the years is, just look who kind of beat up on the Steelers the year prior, and Gainwell fits that description. So the running back room, kind of going back to Dulac's report, or I don't know what you'd call it, not report, but speculation about the running back in the draft. He said, it should go high. It could go very high, kind of alluding to the first round. Do you think that that's a possibility?
I would be surprised if it was a first round pick at this point, given the fact that they've added. I mean, it's not a great running back room, but Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell's a running back room. Gainwell was a third down guy last year. If you want to make Warren the lead back, you can have him as your early down back and Gainwell as your third down guy. But I mean, I still think they're going to draft a running back, probably, fourth round is the range I could see. Maybe the fifth. Do they trade their fifth to the Deacon? No. I think they still have their fifth, so third, fourth, maybe fifth for a running back. First round would be a surprise given the fact they have two guys who are veterans who have proven they can have success in the league. And as we've talked about a bunch, it's such a deep running back class. They can still find a good speed threat that can be a potential home run hitter that they don't currently have on their roster in the middle rounds to add that other dynamic into the running back room.
Yeah, they brought in Bashal Tutin from Virginia Tech. I don't know what other running backs they brought in at this point. Giddens, I think, is another.
They brought in Dylan Sampson.
Sampson, yeah. So these guys, most of these guys are kind of quicker. Now, Sampson, well, really, any of those guys, if they brought in any of those guys, I don't know how tall Giddens is, but the other two would be kind of more or less filling the room out with 5'8", 5'9" kind of players. I think Sampson's maybe like closer to 5'10", but it'd be a pretty short running back room overall. Kind of departure from the Steelers. They usually like to have a big back. You think about Jerome Bettis, you think about Le'Veon Bell, you think about even James Conner. Some of these guys are just bigger backs that they've always liked to have. Najee Harris, of course. So yeah, a little bit different way of building that room. I would be pretty surprised too if they spent a first on the running back, especially not having a second round pick. What they do in the first round becomes that much more important because they don't have a second. You have to wait all the way till the third. I suppose they could trade up, but I don't really see that happening just because they're don't have a ton of maneuverability in terms of draft picks to work with in the first place. So, um, what else in this free agent stuff? Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek. I mean, it's already a crowded wide receiver room. There was times last year where the Steelers were only dressing 4 or 5 players on game day. You already have Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, George Pickens, DK Metcalf. So adding these 2 guys into the mix, I mean, I don't know kind of what the deal is there. I mean, I guess it's still up for debate whether or not Pickens is going to actually be on the roster. I'm kind of leaning towards yes. But yeah, I think good, solid guys to bring back, I guess. Scotty Miller didn't really do much last year. There was that one game against, I think it was the Browns, that he looked pretty good. And then otherwise, even when Pickens was out, they didn't really use him much other than that one game. Ben Skoranek, happy about him being back. Good special teamer. And, blocker. I think they value him in kind of multiple areas. So that is all good and well. I think that is it for this section. If they were to bring in one more free agent, another position, what would it be, you think?
Offensive tackle. They could use a swing tackle behind Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. So I could see them looking if they can find a guy that can play both sides and be that third veteran swing tackle. I mean, I guess they could always reunite with Calvin Anderson, but I think they would want to upgrade because Calvin Anderson did not look very good in his limited playing time last season. Um, I also wrote on Sunday that it wouldn't completely surprise me late in the process if one of these veteran edge rushers is still out there and the Steelers, can get him on the cheap and they can do like a Marcus Golden type deal with the name I throw is Matthew Judon. I don't think Matthew Judon would want to come in and be, the fourth outside linebacker, but just one of those, a notable veteran edge rusher who can come in and take a few snaps away from Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt, who both dealt with injuries at various points last season. Keep them a little bit healthier and just get a good veteran in there to be the number 4 guy. Um, it wouldn't completely shock me, but I think the next position they'd bring in should be and probably would be a third offensive tackle.
Yeah, Dylan Cook's still in the mix, but they probably needed veteran just given the youth of the room overall and the inexperience of the room overall. I agree. Tackle would be good. I haven't really looked at who's out there in the tackle market. I know guys like Kelvin Beachum, some of these guys who maybe made sense are no longer available. So I'll have to take a look at who's out there on the tackle market. But moving on to our third topic, and this one generated a lot of buzz. I believe it was yesterday on Monday. Jeremy Fowler went on the Dan Patrick Show and was kind of overviewing the Steelers situation with Aaron Rodgers, how they got there in the first place. And he said something interesting. He said the Steelers were all in on Justin Fields and that they, quote, made a very competitive offer compared to what the Jets gave him. Of course, the Jets gave him 2 years, $40 million with, I think, $30 million guaranteed. So I think Aditi Kinkhabwala had reported that the Steelers weren't offering any guaranteed money outside of the first year. And so, maybe the overall money amounts of the deal were the same, but the Steelers had an easier time getting out of it after 1 year. And maybe it was as simple as Fields just wanted the kind of security of, okay, I probably have a chance to start 2 years with the Jets, or at least a pretty good chance given the guarantees there. The other possibility in this situation is that the Steelers offered the same amount of money and Fields just said, you know what, I think the Jets probably have a better chance of making me look good over the next couple of years. Joe, which one do you think it is? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, the initial reporting from local guys was that the Steelers didn't want to get up to the same amount of guaranteed money that the Jets did. The Jets guaranteed money in year 2. I'm sure the Steelers probably did not do that. So I think the Jets offer probably, even if the base amount was the same, the Jets offer probably gave Fields more money. As far as him not wanting to come back, I think maybe the only way I could see him not wanting to come back is if the Steelers wouldn't give him a clear path to starting, at least for 2 seasons like the Jets seemingly are. But Fowler's reporting that they're all in wouldn't make it seem like that was the case. So I feel like it was just the money was probably in New York's favor. It's a chance to work with Tanner Engstrand, who did quarterback coach in Detroit, did some really good stuff there, passing game coordinator in Detroit. Aaron Glenn, who saw him when he was with Detroit and Fields with the Bears. So I think maybe the possibility of working with two guys who might be up and coming coaches in the league, especially Ancient on the offensive side, was probably appealing. And the fact that the Jets probably gave him a little bit more money and more guaranteed money over the term was the deciding factor there. So I don't necessarily think the Steelers that he chose the Jets over the prospect of joining the Steelers. Do I think the Steelers, given where they are, the quarterback situation now, probably should have given Fields that money? Now that we're sitting and waiting for Aaron Rodgers for God knows how long, yeah. I mean, maybe I didn't feel that way initially on Monday, but I think Fields is probably a higher upside option over 2 years than whatever they're going to do a quarterback now. So uh, I think maybe they should have been a little bit more aggressive in that situation, even though Fields is unproven. But it's easier to say now a week later, given where they're at. But um, it's going to be interesting to watch how Fields does in New York and see what happens with whoever the Steelers have at quarterback, and we'll see how that trajectory kind of goes.
Yeah, and the I guess important thing to remember is the Steelers made the trade for DK Metcalf on Sunday. So they set it up for like, hey, if they really were all in on Fields, they set it up to kind of be like, hey, look, we've already built you this situation, and like, you know that the offensive line was injured last year. It's going to be better this year. There's selling points that you could kind of convey to Fields if the money indeed was similar. I tend to think that the guarantees was kind of the deciding point for Fields. Fowler also said something interesting. He's like, I don't know if they had Fields above Rodgers, but he also said they were all in on Fields, which I like. Kind of conflicts. Those two sentences don't really jive together too well. So, this is kind of the Jerry Jones version of All In from last offseason, I guess, because it turns out they were not at all in, or we'd probably be talking about Fields being in the black and gold, and we would not have to write about Aaron Rodgers every day of the week. I don't know if we have too much more to add to that. Just thought it was interesting. I know there was a lot of people kind of hoping and wishing that Justin Fields would stick around. And it turns out that the Steelers were probably also hoping and wishing that the Fields would stick around. And now they're kind of caught with they're just kind of caught in a bad situation. So until next week, hopefully we are not still talking about Aaron Rodgers, but I have a suspicion that there will be a few more episodes. You have our promise that we won't mention it every single week if this thing drags on. We're not just going to have the same tired conversation unless there's a pertinent point to actually talk about. We'll find some other topics to talk about, even if the Rodgers stuff is still looming. But if this thing drags on till July, there is a good possibility we don't have any updates until, maybe around draft time. There's some mumblings, but that's even a little over a month away at this point, like almost 6 weeks away. So until next time, I am Ross McCorkle. That is Joe Clark. You can follow us on Twitter at Ross_McCorkle. You can follow Joe at JClark1233, I believe. Did I nail it? I did.
Correct. Nailed it.
And that is all for this week. We didn't have a question this week, but we do want more questions from you guys. 412-254-3145. That's the number at the bottom of the screen. You can give us a call and leave a voicemail, or you can text and just leave us a question for a chance to have your question answered on a future episode at the end of the show. No question this week, but we would love to have some new questions and some questions from some new people. We would love to hear from you guys, where you're calling in from, your name and all of that. We'd like to get to know our audience. So until next time, thank you.